So, hello everyone, welcome to this session about the VScode plugin. Today we are going to review some new changes to the VScode plugin. So I will give you a quick retrospective of what happened during the past year, so since the last developer days, and we'll go through a few features around source management, access profiles, roles, forms, or configuration at the tenant level. So for those who don't know me, I'm Yannick Béot. I'm a French solution engineer at SailPoint for 3 years now. And before that, I was working for consulting services around the IAM project. So a quick retrospective on this extension. So just a few numbers. So as of now, the extension has been downloaded more than 4,000 times, more take or less, more or less. So some of you, 20 people, have written reviews. So all of them are 5-star reviews. So thank you for that. It's really appreciated to have this review on the extension, and probably helps to advertise this extension. Since last year, there have been 18 releases, so with a bunch of fixes or new features about that. Also, so one metric that doesn't always count, I would say, but during last year, more than 15,000 lines of code have been added, and almost 6,000 lines were removed. So doesn't mean a lot, but what I wanted to say by that is that we are adding features, but at the same time I'm doing some refactoring from time to time to be able to clean the code. Most of the line removal was also due to the fact that I'm now using the TypeScript SDK provided by the developer relations team. So thanks to that, I don't have to include in my own code some HTTP calls or the data model or something like that. I can directly take it from the SDK, hence the removal of so much line. Also, since last year, I had 2 contributors that contributed to the code for new functionalities. So thank you for contributing. So it's a good time to remind you all that it's a community effort, it's open source, and anybody can propose new features through a pull request in the GitHub repository. So don't be shy. If you want to contribute, I will consider it and add it to the code base like I did for these 2 contributions. So regarding the new features, the first one I wanted to talk about was about aggregation. Actually, I've only added last year the capability to trigger an aggregation on accounts and entitlements, and also to be able to upload a file for the delimiter file connectors. I added some capability to manage uncorrelated accounts. So it's possible to export uncorrelated accounts, to import a mapping file to manually correlate accounts. I wanted to do that mostly because I wanted to add attributes to uncorrelated accounts, so it's easier to find what is exactly the uncorrelated account, to which identity it might be mapped to, correlated to, and so the import function in the ISC is quite strict in terms of columns, so I had to also develop the import feature so I can support the same format as I export the uncorrelated accounts. Also, I added the capability to create any kind of provisioning policy. At first, it was only the create provisioning policy. Now you can also add updates or over provisioning policy. Also, I added some capabilities around entitlements. So you can export entitlements and you can import a CSV file. So you can, in bulk, update the display name, the description, the requestable and privileged flags. So all at once if you want to. Also was added on the source the capability to test. So it's basically the same thing as you do in the ISC interface to test the connection. You can ping the source from the VA, or you can pick the source. So it means that you can get only 10 accounts, the first 10 accounts. So you don't have to start an aggregation. You won't actually aggregate accounts. You would just, or entitlements, you would just read directly from the connector some resource objects. So let's take a look at this. Before I jump to this demo, I mentioned in the description of my session that I will start from the beginning. So just I will show you how it goes. So once you have installed the VS Code IDE, you can install the extension directly from there. So you go to the extension menu and you look for SailPoint or Identity Security Cloud, and you will find directly this extension. So instead of uninstall, you will have an install button. So just press install and it will, and it's done, it will be installed. So you will have this new menu here, ISC, that you can jump to. And from there, you can add a new tenant. So for that, you just need to click on the plus. Here you need to put so the name of the tenant. So if it's an identitynow.com tenant, you can just put the tenant name. If it doesn't use this identitynow.com domain, you will have to put the whole name. So for instance, for partners, you will have to put the whole name. Like, so I will do that. So as you can see here, I have to put identitynow-demo.com. You can specify your display name. So if you don't want the FQDN in this menu, you can have a display name. So let's call it developer days. And so you can use a personal access token to authenticate with this extension. So here I will put the client ID. So you can look at Colin's session about the use of API to see how to generate a PAT and to manage the scope. For this extension to work, it's best to use the whole scope here, so you can do everything. So once you have done that, the new tenant will appear in the list, and all the capabilities appear here. So if we look at the sources, so you will have all the sources you have. So if you right-click on a source, you are able to, like I said, trigger some aggregation. So the account aggregation to aggregate entitlements, or eventually to aggregate without any optimization. So if you do that, it will start, and it will wait for the job to complete. So only once it's done, you will have you will inform that the aggregation is complete. Regarding the uncorrelated accounts, so for instance, we can export here the uncorrelated accounts. You will be able to export it to a CSV file. So, and you can decide here if you want the extra attributes or not. So let's say yes. And here you will have all attribute accounts for your uncorrelated accounts. So not only the account name or ID or something like that, you will have everything, so in this case, all Active Directory attributes. And so, especially for this source, there is a lot of attributes. So once you're done with that, you can set the username colon here to an identity name and re-import this file easily. Directly from there, you can here import the uncorrelated accounts. The same goes for entitlements. So we can export entitlement details. And here, again, you will have all these columns, and you can change the values here for request table, for the description and all, and re-import it in bulk. Regarding the provisioning policy, so here we already have a few provisioning policies, but you can always add several types if any provisioning policy you need. Regarding the debug, so like I said, you can test the connection. So okay, it's successful, as we have seen here. But you can also pick objects. So you can you define what kind of objects you want. So let's say account. And you can see here the 10 accounts, 10 objects with all their attributes, 10 resource objects, pretty much, to see if your connector is working properly, if the mappings are correct, if you get the data you want from the connector. So one thing I wanted to mention is also about configuration settings. So we have just seen that we are able to generate some CSV, for instance, so a report on uncorrelated accounts, on entitlements, or something like that. So each time you can export something, the extension will propose you a path, and you can define the default path for each report. And I'm using variables, so you can, for instance, add dates, time into your export file. You can leverage so if you have, for instance, a workspace where you want all your tenant, you can add the tenant name or the tenant display name in the path or in the name of the file. So you can use variables. So there are some default values that are proposed, but you can change them. So for that, for instance, you can go to the settings, so preference, settings, and look for, so it's still identity now, and you will find all the possible reports. And so you can leverage, you can define what you want. So again, it's just a proposition, a default proposition, I would say. You can always define when you are running the report where you want it to be saved. Access profile. So one of the additions we've made, so it was actually part of a contribution, is about access profile. So from there, you can see access profile. So I don't have a lot of access profile here, I have a few. It will limit it to 100 access profile by default, so you don't have, I don't know, some customers have thousands of access profiles, so you can have a lot. Anyway, if you have more than 100 access profile, you will have a menu that you can click on to load more access profile, so you can have more access profile afterwards. You can always filter this access profile. So here you can either use the API filter from there, or you can use the search. Beware that if you are using search, there might be some delay, as you know. So if you have just created an access profile, it's possible that even though you are looking for it, if you are using the search API, you may not see it. If you are using the API filter, as you are querying directly the API, you will have directly. So if we use the API, for instance, you will have here a link to the page, so you can craft some filter. So let's say I don't know what do we have here. Name. Start with prism or something like that. I think it's double quotes. And you will have only this. So once it's filtered, this icon is changed. You can always filter again. You can remove your filter, or you can just have everything if you want. You can of course export this, so you can either right click here or use this icon. So here I will export all the access profiles. So you will have all properties layout into a CSV file, right? And also the same format can be used to import an access profile. So actually a very few list of columns are mandatory. So of course the name is required, the owner is required, the source is required, but all other columns are optional. So here I've only used a subset of columns to define the name, the description, or how can I say, or some entitlements or something like that. So I will just remove this one so it doesn't fail. As you are manipulating a lot of CSV, I recommend you to use some CSV extension in VScode. So here, for instance, I'm using two CSV extensions, one to color to provide a color to each column, or you can use also here an extension that will allow you to display your CSV like an Excel file or something like that. So you can always, I don't know, add a row or a column or something like that if you need to. It's probably more easier to edit the CSV like this. So this is my recommendation. So once you have done that, you can always take this file and import it. So I will import this. So I will take this file. It will import and it will generate the log file to provide the fact that it's successfully or not imported into your tenant. So now, let me quick refresh. So here we are using the API. So if I'm looking for a test, here it is. I have my access profile. I can edit directly from there. I can add entitlements by editing the JSON. I can change the description. I can change flags like enable or something like that. So I can, as any other objects that I'm managing here, I can always edit it and save it. Okay. So that was regarding the access profiles. So I put here the list of columns that are supported and the ones that are mandatory, and the default value for the non-required columns, and a short description, especially around the approval scheme. So you for access profile, you can always have app owner, source owner, manager. For the approval scheme that you can use. So this table is already present in the README. So it's just a screenshot of this README that is present in the extension. For regarding roles, so it's a little bit the same. We can list, we can filter, we can export, we can import. So I will show you. So here we have the roles. So again, I don't have a lot of roles. Close that. So you can export the roles, for instance. So here is the default path to my report, and I will have everything. needed to about my roles, so regarding the name and the description and all. Just for you to note, as of now, it's only possible to create roles and create profiles when I'm doing an import. It's not possible to update an access profile or a role. It's just creation. So again, I've created a small file, okay, with a name. For roles, very few columns are required, so just the name actually. But you can define something else. You can define the name and the owner. Sorry. You can define the approval scheme or something like that, and you can define the assignment criteria. So for that, so for this assignment criteria, I actually used some scheme-oriented way of doing things. So I'm using the same operator as a scheme, some NE for not equal or something like that. I'm using AND for operator and or. Obviously, you need to fit in what's possible in ISC. You cannot do whatever you want. Just to mention here the syntax, so you can have identity.attribute if you want to have a criteria on the attribute name, or you can have over syntax for, so if we take the export, for instance, you can have syntax about the account, about the entitlements as well. If you need to, it's also possible to define it. There are examples in the README that are available, so if you want, so it's possible to leverage also this criterion. So here I'm using quite a complex assignment criteria that will ensure that so we have some criteria regarding the life cycle state. There is some criteria regarding the job title, the organization ID, the department. So something like that. I will import this file. And so it has been successfully imported. And you can see here the generated assignment criteria based on the long string I've provided to generate these assignment criteria. So here again, I've put the details about the columns of the CSV file, so with the mandatory columns and the default values and the description. Also, one addition is about the form management. So you can edit, you can delete forms, you can import and export. So it's interesting. So there is already the API, so it's not possible through the UI as of today. At least to be able to export and import forms, but you can do it from the extension. And it's interesting if you want to pass a form from one tenant to another or something like that without using configuration hub or else, you can always export a form and import it. So for that, for instance, so I have a small form here, but I've already exported. I can import it here, for instance, so quite easily, and it will show up here. So you can again edit from here. So if I want to, for instance, get rid of that, so it's possible to remove and save the file, and it will automatically update the form within ISC. Or I can just delete it if I want to. Okay. One last thing is about the tenant level. So tenant level configuration, I would say. So it's something I did here. So if you right-click on the tenant, you can actually configure a few things. So for instance, you can edit the public identities configuration. So this public identity configuration, as you may know, is the list of attributes you may have on an identity. For instance, in certification, you can click on an identity and get some details about this identity. So, or when you are doing some access requests, so these are the attributes you have in this kind of screen. So you can always update it. So for instance, let's say you want to add location, you can, for instance, here provide the location, the key being the attribute name, just save, and the public identity configuration is updated. The same goes for the access request configuration. So you can define here, typically you can check the auto approval enabled from there, or you can check the approval must be external flag if you want. In some configuration it's required, or the reminder and escalation config directly from there as well. Also, you can define the password configuration. So if you allow a custom instruction and about if you are using the digit token, what is the expected format, the duration, if it's enabled or not, and the length. So for instance, you can then generate from there a digit token for a password reset. So for instance, if I want to generate a reset token for Aaron, I can look for Aaron and it will generate for me this 8 digits for my reset token, and you can simply copy it from there. One last thing I did quite recently is about actually the rules. So just for you to know, if you are so if you need to have some connector rules, you can from there just edit script. So you will be able to automatically open the rule as a bean shell, with some Java syntax highlighting, and you can from there, I don't know, update the code, for instance, and save from there, and will automatically update the connector rule. So thank you for your attention. I hope you like the new addition to this extension. If you have ideas about this extension, don't hesitate to reach out also to create some issues with request enhancement, or if you have any issue, you can reach out in the developer forum or directly in the GitHub repository as issues. So thank you all.